وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا وإنك لتهدي إلى صراط مستقيم صراط الله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ألا إلى الله تصير الأمور.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the program Muslims in America. The religion of Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, and the majority of that growth is taking place right here in the United States of America. According to most reliable estimates, there are more than 7 million Muslims living in the United States of America. Muslims have become vital and valuable assets to the American society. So please join me as I travel around the USA and introduce you, my viewers, to a few of the many Muslims in America. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the program Muslims in America. As we all know, the internet has been a very important tool for the dawah in spreading the correct understanding about Islam, and likewise it's been very important in combating some of the misconceptions about Islam. My guest today is what they call an internet blogger, and he has a blog site which is one of the most viewed blogs on Islam on the internet. So my guest is Tariq Nelson. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Before we talk about your internet blog site, I'd like you to tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to Islam.
Well, I'm from Sardis, Mississippi originally, which is a small town of about 1,500 to 2,000 people, very small town. And how I came to Islam is a very long story. It starts back actually with my mother actually first telling me about the concepts of God. I would ask questions about where we came from and these kind of things, and she told me about God for the very first time. And this is very important and key, even though it might seem like it doesn't connect, because she's not Muslim and she didn't mention Islam or anything like that. But the most important thing that she told me was that God was not a man, and that God couldn't be imagined. He's our creator. He had no beginning. He had no end. He doesn't die. None of these things.
But what about your mother? What were her religious beliefs? I mean, was she Christian? Was she very religious? Or
she wasn't very religious in the sense that she went to church. We didn't grow up in church. Neither side of my family, my mother's side and my father's side, neither one, all of them just kind of believed in God and had their own concepts. So it wasn't anything strange for us to just believe in God and don't believe in a man, created all of the universe and these kind of things. So that is what was the first little seed that was implanted in me, the concept that this entire creation could not have possibly been created by a man. Okay, that would bloom, maybe 20 years later. But at any rate, the first time I heard the word Islam was when I was about maybe 9 or 10 years old. Even though the person was from a heterodox sect, the Nation of Islam. His name was Skip Robinson. This guy would go all around Mississippi. His mission was to go and spread the Nation of Islam teachings throughout Mississippi, and he would talk about these things, and I heard about, Islam. These are a bunch of people that hate white people, I guess, 'cause I had seen people in the Middle East, when I was 6, 7 years old during the hostage crisis in Iran, and I had heard a little bit later about the bombing in Libya, these kind of things, and I had seen some things on TV. These crazy people, and I also saw salami, bologna, things like this. That I think about them now, but I look back. When I'm looking back, I'm saying that these are all things, negative images that was pumped into our heads as children, that was against Muslims. At any rate, those were the little things that were kind of there, even though all of them were positive, obviously. But that was the first time I'd ever heard the word Islam. The first time I'd ever actually met a Muslim was when I was 18 years old.
So you mean up to that time you had never seen a Muslim or never recognized Muslims around you?
Never. At that time, all the way up until the point till I was 18 years old, I had never known that I had been around Muslims. Ever, ever, ever. I mean, especially that there were American Muslims. I would have been totally shocked. Even to this day, like when you tell me about your family, that were Muslim in the 70s and the 80s, it's amazing to me because I have no concept. I'm like, where in the world were the Muslims before this? You know? So it was totally amazing to me. So I met this guy, and I was asking him. He was in the Air Force. I said, so, you know, what's the deal here? You know, I mean, I thought that, you know, Muslims hated white people. You know, he's like, no.
And this guy who was in the Air Force, he was Muslim?
Yes, he was Muslim.
Okay.
He was Muslim, and he wasn't. He didn't belong to a heterodox sect.
Was he always Muslim since you've known him, or he became Muslim while you knew him?
He was Muslim from his birth, and I had just met him, and he had a name that I had pronounced. It was Asadullah, but I said Asadullah. What is this? Yeah, you know, I'm wondering what's going on with him. Actually, he was half Sudanese and half African American because he spoke Arabic too. Right. But he wasn't a very practicing Muslim. He prayed, but you know, he would do some things that was against Islam, and it was kind of funny because whenever he would go out with us to, you know, to go with girls or whatever the case may be, I was like, you're ruining my good time because you are not supposed to be doing this. What are you doing with us, you know? And even now, Allah knows best, there's a picture somewhere on this planet, unless it's been destroyed, of me and him together at having dinner with some people, and I have a frown on my face because I'm wondering why is he here with girls and stuff. I thought Muslims were supposed to be upright people. But in spite of that, I still saw that he had something that I didn't have. Okay. But at that time, I was kind of searching, and okay, you know, that's his thing. You know, Muslims are cool people, whatever the case may be. I also had another friend he was talking to. So he talked to me about Islam, and, you know, he cleared up these things about, you know, Farrakhan and not hating white people. There's white Muslims, black Muslims, Arab Muslims, whatever the case may be. And after that, I went to church. You know, I just decided I'm at a point in my life where I think I need to, you know, start practicing you know, some religion and giving myself to God. Now, like I said, I didn't grow up in church. The only times that I went to church was, you know, just a few times, maybe Easter, Christmas, or something like that, very sparingly. So I didn't know anything about the Bible or nothing like this. I thought everybody believed, like I believed, that God was the creator of the universe and this thing. So my mother, she was also kind of getting into the church too. We joined the church together, which is one of the biggest African American churches in my hometown of Memphis, which we had moved to at that time. So we also became interested in this particular preacher, who incidentally is Senator Barack Obama's pastor. He was. She gave me some tapes of him. And so I would listen to them, and they was talking about social upliftment and this kind of thing. And that's a subject that I'd always been interested in because the condition of African American people was so poor. And that was another thing that I'm like looking and thinking in my mind, how can we improve this situation? Because I'm looking and seeing the situation is so bad. And I'd grown up around people, even though it would be seen as a negative, I look at it as a positive because I'd grown up around people that were drunks, drug addicts, you know, cigarette smokers, whatever the case may be. All of these things, I was surrounded by it because my father owned the club. But I see it as a good thing because I saw the effects on the people there, and I never wanted to have a part in it. Okay, I had learned about, you know, diseases that can happen from sexual, you know, fornication and these kind of things, promiscuity. I saw these things, and I never wanted a part of it. And so, at any rate, I started working for Memphis Housing Authority, which was, you know, over blighted communities and poor people, and I see so much social ill it would just literally almost bring me to tears to see a 24-year-old woman that never been married with 8 kids, 7 different men, and see a 12-year-old girl that's playing with the other children that's pregnant, and the father of the baby is probably 40 years old. You know? Not that there's anything wrong with a 12-year-old being pregnant, because my grandmother, you know, she had her first child when she was like 12, but she was married. She was married, you know, so, you know, it's nothing strange about that. But this was happening among, these were a whole generation of children are going to be brought up in this country, and that's going to be a social blight unless something's done. And then I see all of these churches that are surrounding these communities, and it was really disturbing to me. So time passed on, I kept going to church or whatever the case may be, and my friend that was with the Muslim I was telling you about in the Air Force, he became Muslim. But he came back to visit Memphis, but he didn't tell me at first. He said, "Hey, come over and visit. I want to talk to you." And then I came back. He had grown out his beard, and you know, like, "Hey, what's going on?" You know, I became Muslim. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's good." You know, I didn't have a problem with it. But then he invited me to come along. You know, and then he started to give me some books to read and things like this that really started to kind of it started the process in this year process that kind of let me see that I think that Islam is the solution for these social ills that I've been so concerned about for so long. So he gave me some books and these kind of things, and I called up. I said, "There's no way. There's no Muslim mosque here. There's no Muslims here in Memphis. You know, at least I didn't think so." So I called up and I got some Nation of Islam people. "No, that's not what I want. Hang up." Okay, then I find another one. Okay, maybe this is it. And sure enough, it was some Muslims that had been there, you know, through the 80s and whatever the case may be. So I went there, and they gave me some more books to read and things like this, but I didn't accept Islam. But for an entire year, I really felt bad about not accepting it because I felt like I was running away from the truth. You know? This is exactly what I'd been looking for. One thing I forgot to mention, my mother gave me these tapes, and this is, I can remember it. I remember being so startled because I didn't know anything about Christianity. She mentioned, I was listening to the tape of this preacher. I've been listening to several of his tapes, but then he was talking about a religious issue, and then he said that Jesus was God. Like, whoa. I like this guy. You know, he's moved away from Christianity. What's going on? You know, he just said that Jesus is God. I called up my mother. I said, he says that Jesus is God. He must belong to a deviant sect. She said, "No, actually, this is what Christians believe and this and that." I said, "But what about what we had talked about?" She said, "Yeah, I still believe that, but this is how some Christians believe." You know, so I found out that Christianity wasn't actually what I believed. You know. So, but nonetheless, the thing that really, if I'm honest with myself, and I was honest with myself afterwards, the thing that really kept me from becoming Muslim is that I thought it was too hard. I didn't want to get up 5 o'clock in the morning to pray. I didn't want to, you know, 5 times a day, every day. That sounded so tedious to me. And to stay away from I was never a drinker, alhamdulillah. I was never a big party or nothing like that, you know. But some of the tenets seems really strict to me. And I couldn't see myself doing it. But after my friend came back and moved back to Memphis permanently, I had to kind of see a Muslim live it, you know. And then I kind of saw him, observed.
But your friend who became Muslim, I mean, he had a life similar to yours before he became Muslim.
Yes.
Okay.
Very similar. He was from Memphis. And that was the thing. I didn't see anybody live Islam. It was so theoretical, and I couldn't really put my mind around doing these things that I'm reading about, you know. Okay, because I mean, it seemed 1,000 years old. You know, I can't live like this. You know, that's what I'm thinking. You know, there's no way. You know, I mean, I got things. How do you live? You know, and I don't see any Muslims around to give me any examples. So, after observing him for about a month and a half, I see, okay, yeah, I can do this. And then just one day on a humbug, we was in the mall walking, and I said, I'm ready to become Muslim. And I took the Shahada at that point.
Tariq, you told us a lot about your mother and how her teaching you certain beliefs help you more readily to accept Islam. So tell us a bit about your mother and how she reacted when you told her that you had become Muslim.
Yeah, she wasn't surprised, because as I was reading, I was kind of discussing with her a little bit. But then after I became Muslim, she felt like, this is the perfect fit, because of all the observations that I'd make and, things like this. She felt like it was a fit for me. But like I said, we had some conversations on the Trinity. And she told me, and this is at that point I'm trying to talk to her about Islam, and she told me I never believed that. It never made sense to me. I never felt this. Everybody in the church is jumping around and talking about
catching the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, the Holy Ghost. And she said, I'm like, why is this not happening to me? This is not fair, whatever the case may be. But she felt like the same. I guess she felt the same way I felt. This is too strict. And for me, I made some mistakes in my dawah, in that, especially when I was called. Because I expected when I accepted, okay, everybody's going to accept. I found it. Everybody's just going to accept. My uncles. I mean, the lights on. Hey, I found something here. It's like finding a piece of gold. Everybody have some, and I thought that. I just knew everybody's going to accept. That's how naive I was, But no one accepted. But it was mainly because I was approaching them the way from my kind of thinking. I was approaching them from social aspects. This is my thinking, instead of approaching them from the concept of God, which is the very beginning of where I was approaching in the very beginning. But even still, they would tell me, all of this makes sense. It's too hard. It's too hard. And even my uncle, he told me the same thing. My uncle and he was like 4 years older than me, 4 or 5 years older. He was like my big brother. We grew up more like brothers than like uncle and nephew. He told me the same thing. And then he said the same thing. I could tell the root of the question. He said, how many Muslims are there? 4 or 5? He'd never seen Muslims either. I mean, they're not. Where are they? And people want to see us live Islam and how it's practical to them. I can't walk them. I see it on TV. I see people with a camel. I see people living in the desert, but I can't live like that over here. That's what people are thinking. So my mother and my father, neither one of them were opposed to me becoming Muslim. They never saw a problem with it. The only problem was, they saw that it was too rigid for them. They just didn't see how it could mesh with American life.
Tariq, now we began the program telling the viewers that you had a blog site and that you blog and post some information about Islam. So tell us a bit, first of all, about what a blog is, and tell us a bit about the nature of your blog and the type of information you post there and the type of issues that you address.
A blog is basically a internet site where you just basically write your thoughts. It could be anything. People have blogs from anything from political, I'm talking about non-Muslim, Muslim. They talk about political things. They'll talk about entertainment. They'll talk about basketball or football, sports. They'll talk about. There's anything that you want to talk about. They'll talk about it. Fishing, hunting, anything. They got a blog on it. So before I started blogging, I was, I came into Islam, and I'd started, distributing tapes. I think I might even got some from you. Distributing tapes, things like this, trying to call people to Islam and things like this, working in the prison, and trying to solve some social problems, things like this, going to work on everything, trying to implement everything that I talked about. And when the internet became popular, I started a website with a couple of friends, called Memphis Dawah, where we would put up articles about what is Islam, this and that. And I wanted the word Memphis in it because I wanted people to know that there are Muslims in Memphis, because I know a lot of people are like me.
Especially with your background being there so many years not knowing there were Muslims in Memphis.
And there's a lot of people like that. And that's the reason I really wanted people to know that there are Muslims in Memphis and in America and so on and so forth that are practicing and living every day on an everyday basis in Islam.
But let me ask you, Brother Tariq, just back on another point you raised earlier. You discussed that maybe your approach in the dawah to your family wasn't quite right in the beginning. But I'm going to ask you just a question about the dawah in general. Do you think there's been some people who've made the mistake also of being a bit harsh in the dawah and where they're spreading the message of Islam, whether that be to Muslims or non-Muslims?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because a lot of that actually was the result. It all kind of ties in together because a lot of the people that was coming from these backgrounds of maybe they were former gang members. The only way they really know how to deal with a person is with harshness. And so, like I said, there was no social reform, and that was one of the things that was kind of overtaking us. It was a big wave of it, and it became like a culture. Especially amongst African Americans, it became like a culture of you got to be hard. Even people that may not have been hard, it started having the exact opposite effect. Even people that may not have been hard, okay, I got to be hard because this is what you're supposed to do. It became a big misnomer. And what it would start to do is it started to turn people off. And like I said, and I alluded to it in that I cut off my family, people that I was close to, my cousins, my family. I shouldn't have cut these people off. I abandoned them. I boycotted them. I don't want anything to do with you no more. And several years passed. And one of the biggest events, in the last 5 years I had was that my little cousin Yasmin, I used to hold in my hand. I went to Chicago in 2005, right before Hurricane Katrina, and we had a reunion. Yasmin is as tall as I am. She's a grown woman about to go to college now. I'm like, my goodness. And I saw other people, and I just sat there and I just thought, I've missed a whole chunk of my family's life. I don't know them anymore, and they don't know me. And it made me sad. And that's the problem. And that I see now that we have to make more of an effort. Muslims have to make more of an effort to let non-Muslims know who we are as normal people. That way, whenever some lunatic does something, that people will know, well, I know that Omar is not like that. I know that Tariq is not like that. I know that so-and-so is not like that, And that's the reason why on my blog, one of the things that seems like it might be unconnected, but to me it's very much connected because I have a lot of non-Muslim readers, and I talk against terrorism. I mean, I unrelentingly denounce terrorism without any ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay, that's one of the things that kind of frustrated me, is that every denunciation that I see was attached with a, yeah, we're against 9/11, but look at what's happening in this country. I'm against what happened in this place, but look what these people are doing. No, forget about what these people are doing. We're against this. This is against our religion. Period. End of story. We're against terrorism. This is the message that people want to hear. An unmitigated rejection of terrorism. We're not for that. We're not going to justify it any kind of way whatsoever.
Before we conclude, Tariq, I'm asking all my guests, just from your experiences as being a Muslim in America and traveling around and interacting with people, tell us what you think, from your own personal opinion, is the future prospects for Islam in America.
I've been to a lot of cities, in a lot of communities. Allah has blessed me in a lot of different states. And if you had asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have said pretty bad. I was not very confident. But I'm seeing now that more people want to interact with their neighbors. More Muslims want to reach out. More Muslims want to reconciliate and get involved in social activities. And the people who want to move toward isolationism are becoming fewer and fewer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's a pretty good outlook now.
Okay.
And that all of us, Muslims, non-Muslims here as Americans, we can work together to make this a better society.
Inshallah. Okay, Brother Tariq, thank you very much for your time. I hope that you have enjoyed meeting a few of the many Muslims here in the United States of America. The religion of Islam is the fastest growing religion in the USA, and I invite you to join me as I travel around this country and introduce you to the Muslims in America.
On mountains of Mecca, bear witness that to the oneness of Allah do I testify. For all that He's given me, how can I deny? My purpose in life should be only to cry. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah. Muhammad is His messenger. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah. Muhammad is His messenger. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Rasulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Nabi Allah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Rasulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad Rasul of Allah.